Aloha, David. Welcome.
Aloha, Wendy. Thanks for coming back to Embers Rising.
Here we are, another episode of Embers Rising podcast. Welcome, everyone. If you don't know who I am, I'm the host, Wendy J, with my wonderful co-host and husband partner,
David Tucker. Why don't I get to be the host? Next time I get to be the host. So Wendy has a saying and a practice in her life, and that is do the thing that you don't want to do first thing in your schedule during the day. And I think this episode is probably way down on the list of things we want to talk about. It's going to be episode number 2.
So just so you know, just like a few minutes before we hit record, I mentioned to David like what episode this is, and he was like, I'm not ready to talk about that. And then we pressed record, and here we are, and we're going to talk about it. So here we are. We're going to make this happen. I think it's good just because it ties into how we've transitioned last year into this year and time and just moving forward in what we're doing. So,
and it also, I think we should explain why we disappeared. And we have a lot of people in our lives that, clients, family, friends, like everybody in our inner circle knew what was going on. But to the outside world, it looked like we just evaporated. But we had one event that really wrapped the entire year, and it also consumed us almost completely for 3 months.
Yeah,
and that was a family member, best friend, passed away.
That was really hard. So my sister got married to this wonderful human being, this wonderful, incredible guy named Tom, and we knew him for a year, and they got married in September, and he had been diagnosed with ALS earlier that year. And so, but we didn't know the time frame of how that was going to work out. They always, give you a time frame like 1, 2, 4 years. We don't know. And I've also had a family friend that had ALS, and it was very like rapid situation. And it's also very terrible to go through. Super hard if you're listening to us right now and you know someone that has ALS in your family or friends. Man, our hearts go out to you because we have been through that. It just gives me chills right now, David, to talk about it. It is a hard situation. It is a hard thing to talk about. But so we did the wedding in September, and Tom's condition was actually really not great at the time.
But he was still able to walk down the aisle, and he was still standing. Obviously, he was having some struggles with his extremities, upper body, and it affected his voice. Tom was like this outgoing, loved racing cars, loved being outside. He had a job that kept him outside for the city.
He was in the service.
He was in the military. He was just super fit, super active, and it runs in his family, so he knew that he had the genetic predisposition for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
But it still takes everybody by surprise when the diagnosis comes.
I think Dave and I we've never been through anything like this together with someone so close. And it was something that we had to really refocus ourselves on how we could be a part of helping. There's only so much caretakers can do, hospice can do to help at the home. So my sister, because he is a vet, had caretakers coming in and helping him at the same time that they're not there 24/7. So she was, kind of had to stop her life and work to be a caretaker for 24/7. They needed us, and we had to do the same thing. It's like we kind of had to stop our life. We were there like 7 days a week.
It was, And so leading up to the wedding, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we have all the video equipment, so we did the video and just like whatever we could do. And the expectation, at that point, we knew that it was a terminal diagnosis. I didn't know anything about ALS, so I'd done the research. And I'm like, oh, there isn't any cure for this. Like the inevitable death is going to come. But the time frame they gave us was optimistic compared to what actually happened.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, it just that's the way it went. 72 days after the wedding, he passed away.
I was just going to say, it's so hard to talk about. Anyway, I was just going to say, Tom had an incredible ember for his own self, to fuel his flame, to be there for my sister, to give her what she wanted, which was a wedding. And they did it by a beautiful lake up in Idaho. It was absolutely gorgeous, but he did everything in his power to make sure he was there. When we got back to town, it wasn't a couple of days later, we were visiting him in the hospital. it was very strange experience going from seeing you standing, taking pictures at the wedding, and a few days later, now we're at the hospital and he's in a bed and we're making like life decisions at the moment, you know, how do you want this to roll out? So the time frame for us, we were really jamming on our podcast. We were involved in a high level mastermind, 2 actually masterminds. And we kind of had to take a big pause. At the same time, we really dove into helping my sister caretake. And that was caretaking with her, for her, and the people around her, because we knew that it was no way you can rely on the caretakers that were coming in from the hospital to help with this, because the situation was degrading so quickly. Do you have something to say?
No, I just, I'm reflecting on what to share. And I think the thing is in life, sometimes you're called, right? And when that time comes, you don't need to, but I feel the best thing is to
be there,
answer that calling, right? And in this time, the calling was we need to stop prioritizing work and life, right? And those sorts of things, and really focus on the people that you love that need you the most in their moment of need.
And I want to add to that, David, because listen, my sister and I are not the best friends. We have a very challenging relationship. We love each other, but it's very challenging. Maybe you have a family member like that yourself and can relate to that. So when I was hearing some outside people like, my hairdresser, make sure you show up for her. It was very difficult to know that I'm going to have to do this. And I want to do it, but it was very hard knowing that I'm going to have to really set aside a lot of time and energy to go out, and they actually lived an hour away. So we were driving an hour there and an hour back. So there's a lot of time. So, continuing the podcast, continuing our workflow with our business was just like not very much an option. And we're just kind of letting things go to really help focus on it. We don't know the ending date. We didn't know. So we were just kind of going through it every day. When will this end? It was quite stressful. At the same time, this kicked off a whole other journey. And we knew every year, if you don't know us, we used to live in Hawaii. So that's why we say aloha. And we have been going back and forth every year since we've lived there. What it's been, 10 years we used to live there?
Yeah. And this was the year that we decided it might not happen, right?
This last year.
Because we need to stay here and just support the family. But that isn't the way it turned out.
Right. So as the season was changing last year, it was getting colder. We decided to keep our plans to go to Hawaii. And I really thought, let's put something on the books for us for next year that we can look forward to. So I'm like, hey, let's sign up to a half mountain marathon. One of the hardest one in the Pacific Northwest. Let's do it.
Hey, good idea for someone that runs. That's not me.
And I love the app. If you don't use it, I love iFit. If you're not an iFit fan, check it out. Man, it has everything from biking, hiking, meditating, walking.
Every manner of equipment.
It is so awesome. Strength training, aerobics. It was just awesome. Anyway, that app allowed me to really get to know some of the runners who share their stories out there virtually, right? So on a treadmill training virtually. And one of the runners named Leah Rosenfeld, shout out to Leah. I thought to myself, I wonder if we did a half mountain marathon, if I could hire a Olympic runner to coach us, because I know that my drive is so crazy that I'll probably run myself into the ground. And at the same time, it was a way for me to manage stress. And I came from a mountain bike racing background. I raced mountain bikes for 10 years in Colorado in the US. And
why this is relevant, right? Is in September, October, November, right. That season in Idaho. While it's summertime, it's beautiful here. Spring can be challenging. Yeah. Fall can be beautiful, but winter hits like one day you wake up and you look out and you're like, oh, it's 20 degrees out and there's snow on the ground. I guess biking day is over.
Biking's over. Yeah. And we're hitting the treadmill. So I hired Leah, and I wasn't even sure how to approach her, by the way. I just have to say this little note because I wasn't even sure how to approach Leah, but it was like a divine intervention. She had all of a sudden popped up this post on Instagram that she was taking coaching students. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call and see, whatever, I sign up and see if I can grab a session, like 15-minute session with her. She was so great. She actually gave me 45 minutes. Bless her heart. She's amazing. competitive runner out there, and gave me a whole plan. Here's a 16-week plan. Here's how you're going to do it, and done. We were like, okay, perfect. Because we are cross-trained athletes. Like, how do we do this with multi-sport athletes? And how can we take this training into Hawaii? We knew we were going to transition to Hawaii for, 6 weeks over there, back home in Big Island. And so we had to make sure that we were kind of like on our half marathon schedule. And it was also, this was a way for us to de-stress, because it was really heavy being caretaking with Tom, going through ALS, and then the whole afterwards, after he passed, there was still like a lot of heaviness, and we were feeling pretty down about our business and letting things go and kind of self-isolating and, moving into this new space with running. I'm not a runner. David's not a runner. I've kind of ran here and there, but I've not ever focused on running. I'm like, I don't really run, like, let's jump on our bikes. I've always been a biker. So transitioning into running has been a big thing. But we did. We started running very slowly and did these micro little steps into this.
And so if you follow Wendy J on Strava, and you can always tell when something stressful is going on in life, because you'll notice the mileage and the hours pop up. You're like, oh, 20 hours this week. Like, shit must have hit the fan somewhere in that. I withdraw a little bit and am quiet and reflective. So I'll just go out in the gym and pump iron quietly, or with a podcast on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my introduction to the fact that I was going to become a runner, or be woefully left behind, or even worse, be on the sidelines, which I'm not a very good sidelines person. I guess I'm not going to be a support person. I'm not the best when it comes to that. I want to be in the action. And so I was like, I'm all in on this mountain marathon that was going to be in March, April.
I think it was April. Yeah.
And so I had to start running on immediately, if not sooner.
Yeah. And I want to just probably make that another episode, because I want to stay focused on the fact that life happens for all of us. And sometimes we have to just show up for family and friends in ways that we didn't expect. And you have to sometimes give up things that you just can't believe that you have to give up or put on pause to be there to help. I can't imagine not being there for my sister and for Tom and his family. I can't imagine not being there for my mother, who stayed over there to help her and bring food and make sure everyone, had conversation. It's just spending time there, being there. So, if you're listening to this and you have someone, I don't know how hard it is to see them or be around them. It is so important to take that time off. It did hurt our business. There was a lot that we had to let go, and it hurt us, wanting to be able to podcast, and we just couldn't. We just couldn't do it. We energetically did not have any more energy to give, so we went dark. We apologized. We actually apologized that we actually went dark, but we had to go dark to kind of re-heal and reset, and then come at this at a different angle. So I guess my point is I just want to say, never give up on the people around you, and always be able to show up and support no matter what, even that it's just, you don't have time for, you have a busy schedule. We know that, we get that, but sometimes people need you, and it really makes a difference if you can just show up and help them too, whatever you can do. Maybe it's just bringing we were bringing dinners over there.
Bringing dinners, cooking dinners, just go over and clean. Right? And just also help Tom dress, and personal hygiene, and everything you can imagine. Just to sort of, I think people are wondering maybe what happened, right? And so after the wedding, like Wendy said, within a week he was in the hospital, and I think it was a week later after the wedding that we were sitting by his bed in the hospital, and the doctor came in and said, let's talk end of life here. Which I've never had that conversation in that setting before.
It was a bit
and Tom was such he's just so strong. He's like, yeah, let's do this. And he's like, the doctor said, I've never seen a case progress as rapidly as yours is. And I think it would be prudent to make sure that everything in your life is wrapped up that needs to be wrapped up within the next
6 weeks.
Yeah, before Christmas. He said before Christmas. And, it was just every single day you could see him lose some piece of functionality. And 2 weeks after that, we were fitting him for a motorized wheelchair, a motorized lift to get him out of bed, this Tobii Dynavox thing that I set up that would help him actually speak in his voice. And, barely any of that got used, right? Because it happened so quickly. By November, we were gathered at your sister's house in his bedroom on what we were calling hospice watch.
Yeah.
And we were all there as he took his last breath. And it was just
tough.
It was just, it was mind blowing to see what really happened so quickly. And then to recover from that, it's the holidays, it's Thanksgiving and Christmas. And how do you have joy, right? And all of those sorts of things.
And I think, our listeners are probably wondering, how do you guys even come back from something like that? We had to support each other. And both David and I handle that kind of heaviness in different ways. I'm need to talk about it a lot and just to get it off my chest. And then I just also need to get it out of my body. So I make sure that I'm staying active, doing my training, and really staying dedicated to that. I just needed those two things. You are a little bit more self-isolated, get into David's head and be in David's head for a while, but it's
neither's right or wrong. I mean,
it's
just the way different people handle different situations.
Yeah. And
I think it's because you can always see yourself, right, in every situation. I think that's the way we relate, obviously. And, just thinking about what if it was me, and where would that leave Wendy, right? And so that drives a lot of compassion for people in your family. Even if you have that butt heads relationship, right? You have a deeper understanding of that compassion, or vice versa. What if...
No, you guys are probably wondering, what so exhausted you? I mean, driving over there, and I remember just entering the house, and you just go to town. You don't even ask what needs to be done. You take out the trash, you empty the dishwasher, you start going in all the bathrooms, and you just shed all of the towels and get stuff washed. And I remember going to my sister's room and grabbing her laundry and just doing it, because she is managing 24/7. She doesn't have time to do any of that. Does she have food in the fridge? Is there gas in the car? All of those were going through our head. And it was just, sometimes you have to just go through the motions yourself, get there and do it. Don't wait for a checklist. Make the checklist for yourself. Get in there and do it, because that is the thing that's going to help that other person the most, is to have some sort of normalcy around her where things aren't piling up, because there's no way that she has time to just have normal house chores done for her while she's managing someone going through, her husband going through ALS disease. It's very tricky.
Right. And very quickly, I had a nurse grab me and say, okay, I'm going to show you how to set up the feeding tube, and this is all foreign to me, right? And how to get him out of bed and get him to the bathroom, and how to assist him going to the bathroom. And I mean, it's just the basic things in life, just eating and pooping, was a major challenge. And for athletes, it's hard to think that way.
Yeah.
But so he passed away and was with everybody he loved, had a beautiful funeral. We just visited him on Memorial Day because he is a vet.
The gift has been for us to see ourselves in ways that we had not been with each other before, in ways that were so taxing that it was unbelievable. And Dave and I are warriors ourselves. We've always given so much to our business, and we're so dedicated with our podcast and our training, and there were things that just had to go, and we just couldn't do it with our timing. And then how do we support each other and make sure that we're trying to even get sleep to just go out there the next day to help again, because it just took so much time. But bless Tom's heart, he's in heaven, love that. And he is, I know, always looking down on us, and so grateful that we were there.
And if you know someone who has ALS, or even if you have ALS, we know a little bit of what you might be going through, we got connected to the ALS Foundation. And so that's definitely a cause that's doing a lot to figure out how to maybe navigate this medically, right? Because there's no cure for it. There is
some rapid, though. I want to say when I was doing a lot of research, there was some new brain medicine that was coming out to start rehealing this connection. So they are on some cutting edge. And I think with AI medicine, I think that there will be in the next 10 to 20 years, some sort of help for ALS diagnosed patients. And it's case to case, because everyone's a little bit different, and what you have. And Tom had a lot more going on than just ALS. He had some other things going on too. So his case was just a lot more aggressive than average ALS.
For sure. And the VA did such an amazing job providing so much, including some very experimental drugs. Didn't seem to make a difference. Or maybe it did, and we got an extra week. I don't know.
Yeah. That was incredible. Yeah. Shout out to the VA. They did an amazing job. Incredible people over there. Just, yeah, super
They just
impressive.
kept delivering stuff, right? Like here's a van, here's a right, a lift van that
So
we only got to
impressive.
ride in twice.
So impressive.
Motorized wheelchairs, all that sort of stuff.
We understand if life gets tough and you have to shift gears and adapt, that's the most important, is being there and showing up for somebody else. That's the most important. Or it could be your partner, showing up for them in ways that you didn't expect. At the same time, never give up. And whatever you've had to put on pause, or maybe you're on pause right now and you're going through something, like, we get you, okay? We believe in you, and this too shall pass. I always remember Oprah saying, this too shall pass. When things are heavy and it sucks and you're just going through the motion of being in it, and it just feels like a season that never is going to end, trust that it will pass, and you can move through this. Everything in your being will, and you can move through this. I absolutely believe in you because I know that we moved through it ourselves, and here we are. So,
and Embers Rising, is all about empowerment and fueling that flame that's within you, but it's also about showing up when there's a massive fire and just being that positive light and rising above it, right?
Yeah.
Like, be an Embers Rising in whatever the situation is, because you just never know what's around the corner.
yeah.
So
You never know what life has to bring. So anyway, thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
thanks for sharing. It was not an easy
It
episode.
was not an easy episode, but we wanted to get this out to y'all.
All right. We love you guys. If
So
you're
we're-
listening out there.
If you're listening out there, stay strong, keep pushing on, fuel the flame inside, and we're going to say what we always say, aloha.